Hello and welcome to Guns Forever Productions. Today we're going to be talking about the Mosin Nagant rifle, the infamous Soviet battle rifle from the World War II era. It shoots the 7.62 by 54R cartridge, this little baby right here. It has a lot of history, a lot of cool facts, and some people like it, some people hate it. I personally own 2 of them, and I look to get more of them. I mean, they're just fun to have around and they're really cheap to shoot. But anyway, we're going to do a quick rundown on what is the Mosin Nagant rifle. Where did it come from? What was its uses? You know, who used it, made it, dates, best I can remember them. I have some cue cards, so that'll help a little bit. And then at the end, we're going to do a quick little discussion about what we're going to be doing with this rifle. Let's start off with where it came from and about the time. The most popular version of the Mosin Nagant rifle is the M9130. The M9130, and those 2 numbers are in relation to dates, very important dates in the Mosin Nagant rifle. The 91 is 1891, which is the first year the Mosin Nagant rifle was built in substantial numbers. Prior to that, they might have had a prototype or something like that, a tester. But anyway, their main issued starting date was 1891. And the 30 refers to 1930 when they started re-arsenaling these rifles and bringing them up to date per se, giving them a little bit shorter barrel as the standards of battle had changed, more standardized sighting increments. They converted them from arshins to meters. For those of you who aren't familiar with the arshin is a Imperial Soviet era unique unit of measure for distance, and it converts down to about 0.71 meters. So an arshin is just a little bit longer than a meter, but Peter the Great actually took it, and before that there was really no known actual translation of an arshin, but in Peter the Great's time he took the arshin and actually standardized the units so it could actually be converted down. But the 1891 rifles were a few inches longer in the barrel, and they probably had a little bit different stock design in them. I believe the strap slits were not here on both the foregrip and the buttstock. That was a 9130 edition. Other than that, the differences are really minor. They're very minor. I believe even the bolts are pretty much interchangeable. I don't think there was any major design differences there. But they made these rifles in huge quantities, and they've been in so many different skirmishes and battles and border disputes and civil wars and world wars and you name it. And if you start back in the late 1800s, 1891 up to 1900, any battle in that area up till present day, this rifle has probably had some role in it somewhere. I did internet research to try to find a number, and the best I could come up with for sure, history-backed, confirmed wars, there was 33 of them. And that's just an incredible history for a battle rifle, and it shows that even for being such a basic, almost rustic weapon, it's not a very highly refined weapon. It was built to very loose tolerances and very loose standards. That mentality when they went into this rifle made it very rugged, very durable. And it stood the test of time for a long time. I mean, these cartridges, they're still being produced today for machine guns, rifles like the SVD Dragunov sniper rifle, Vepr, they use them. It's a very, very popular cartridge in the world. The rifle is physically a very large weapon. The 9130 in particular, and that's going to be the main focus point of this video series, is the 9130. I do have a carbine here. We'll get to that in a minute. The full-size rifle had a 29-inch barrel, and that's, even by today's standards, that's a very, very long gun. You know, I'm going to put my fingertip at the end of the barrel here, and you can see just how long that gun is. I have a 6-foot arm span. So it's not one that you just throw in your pack and go out into the woods with. It's heavy. This particular rifle weighs in at just under 9 pounds. So you're not going to be hiking very far with this over your shoulder. And a lot of people don't know this, but they were actually produced in several different cartridges. The Russian and Soviet ones were all produced in the 7.62x54R, and the large majority of them were in that cartridge. But during the course of wars and battles and stuff like that, there were rifles that were captured by the enemy. Ones that come to mind are Finland. They actually produced the Mosin Nagant, I believe, and they produced it in a 7.62x53R, a little bit shorter cartridge. Germany actually captured a whole bunch of these weapons out in the Soviet battle arena, largely because in the cold weather they worked better because of their sloppy tolerances. I mean, a lot of rifles built to this standard today would never get off the production line because they're so sloppy. But when they captured them, they rechambered them to their it was a 7.92x57 Mauser cartridge, and that made it cross-compatible with the Mauser rifles that they were using at the time. And Austria actually captured a bunch of them too, and they rechambered them to an 8x50 Mannlicher cartridge, and that was another, so they could use the same cartridge. They didn't have to produce or capture ammunition, but they were making use of the weapons that they did capture and reuse. The name Mosin Nagant comes from the designers. It was Captain Sergei Mosin and a civilian named Leon Nagant. And these two gentlemen, I tell you what, between the two of them, one of them designed just the magazine follower, and I believe, I'm not even going to guess at which one that was. I found the data at one point in time, but it's now lost to me. But between the two of them, they came up with a genuine classic rifle. It's not collectible, but it's classic. It's one of a kind. But when I was talking about mass quantities of these rifles, it's easy to just say, oh yeah, they made a lot of them, thousands and thousands and thousands of them. Well, let's put a number to that. The Soviet produced Mosin Nagant. And let's keep in mind, this rifle was built in Spain, Finland, America, Italy, China, and I don't know if Korea or any of those, Vietnam, any of those guys actually produced a version, but they were made in many different countries. But the Soviet produced 37 million, give or take. Nobody knows for sure exactly how many, because once battle gets heated up and you're trying to turn rifles out the door as fast as you can to keep your armies armed up, and you know, at that point, counting the rifles going out the door is probably not your highest priority. But I mean, 37 million, I saw a statistic at one point that said this is the most produced sniper rifle ever made. And where they get that information from is, you know, some of you will be looking at this and say, but there's no scope on that. How can it be a sniper rifle? Well, for one, what defines a sniper rifle is not whether it has a scope on it, whether it has a long barrel, whether it shoots a big cartridge or anything like that. In their proper hands, a .22 long rifle can be a sniper rifle. But anyway, they did produce sniper purposed specific Mosin Nagant rifles, and those did have a scope on them. But that was the only major difference between the regular 9130 and the 9130 PU sniper. But because of that and the ability to take that scope mount and just go from rifle to rifle to rifle, and the fact that the iron sights are marked out to an optimistically long distance of 2,000 meters. It's not, in my opinion, a possible distance for the 7.62 cartridge. You know, 1,000, sure, in good hands. Most people, 500, something like that. I think most everyday Joe Schmo should have no problem doing a 400 or 500 yard shot on a decent sized target on a good day with good weather, stuff like that. But you put one of these in a really skilled shooter's hands, put a scope on it, a decent glass, and he shouldn't have any problems getting 1,000 yards. But they made several different variants of the rifle, and I've mentioned a few of them here, but I managed to find a list of 8 of them, and I'm going to hold my sheet of paper up so I can read this to you, because I don't remember all 8 of these. But I'm going to start at the top and go to the bottom. These are not in any particular date order or anything like that, just whatever order I wrote them down. But we're going to start with the M91, which would be the 1891, the original. The M91 Dragoon, I believe there was a barrel length difference for you know, different purposes, you know, maybe not sent to the front, I don't know. But there was a very slight difference, not much. The M07 carbine, not overly familiar with the 07 carbine. I would imagine that it's probably effectively just a chopped off M91, which is, you know, I guess if you think about it, really how you make a carbine. There might have been some sighting differences, I don't know. Then we get to the 9130 PU sniper, which is this rifle with a scope on it. That's all the PU sniper was. Then you have the M9130, which is this, and the M38 carbine, which, let's see here, the M38 carbine was initially started produced in 1938, obviously, and they took the 9130 rifle, changed the rear and front sights on it very slightly. The front sight was a more dramatic change, so it couldn't actually take the bayonet from a 9130. They did that on purpose, because the carbine rifles were not sent to the front. They weren't designed for that. They were designed for guys like engineers and the guys that were going to be staying back, where mobility and getting around was probably more important than distance. I believe the barrel is 8 inches shorter than the 9130, so figure about that much cut off the barrel, give or take a little bit. The M44 carbine, which is what I have right here, I'll show you that in a minute, and it's kind of the same deal. It's the M38 updated. They made the front sight change that they did to the M38. They made it permanent on the M44, and the M44 was equipped with a permanently mounted hinged bayonet. So they weren't totally without a bayonet, but they could just fold it away, instead of the M30 or the 9130's bayonet that slipped on the muzzle and locked on, a lot like you would see on a Civil War rifle, the musket style bayonets. That's what these had. Then the M59 carbine, which I've never seen one in person. I would imagine that it's probably an updated version of the M44. I guess I've never really seen one hand to hand, so I can't speak for certain, but I would imagine they probably updated the sights again, probably updated the trigger a little bit to more modern standards, and maybe the stock. The stocks really didn't change much over the years. This much of them was basically the same. And you know, the foregrips, there were some variants on the foregrips, and then the carbines were obviously shorter. There were several different arsenals in that produced these, you know, and that goes along with the many different countries. But the two most popular ones are Tula and Ishvek, and those are the two ones that produce the most in Soviet Russia. And this one, I believe, is an Ishvek rifle. I'm not for certain. There's two symbols that are engraved on the muzzle here. There's one of them that's a hammer and sickle, and then there's another one that's a star with an arrow inside of it. And I believe the star with the arrow is the no, that's the Tula mark. Yeah, that's the Tula mark. Ishvek was the hammer and sickle, so this is a Tula rifle. And right below that they have the date of 1940, which means that this rifle very easily could have been used in the Russian battlefront of World War II. But getting to some of the more obscure versions of the Mosin Nagant is, some people don't know that a couple firearm companies in the United States were actually commissioned by Russia to produce rifles for their war effort. And I believe that was pre-World War II. It might have been as far back as World War I. I'm not certain on that, but it was somewhere in that range. But those two companies were New England Westinghouse and Remington. And these rifles were produced in 30-06, not the 7.62 by 54R. And as you can imagine, that could cause some problems on the battlefront when you're in Russia, you're a Russian soldier, you're handed a rifle that looks Russian, but it was produced with really tight tolerances to American standards and with an American cartridge that your military has to ship in and provide for you instead of actually producing in the homeland. So what a lot of guys did is they would get that rifle and they would either drop it and pick up I got a gnat flying around my face. They would either drop the 30-06 and pick up a 7.62, a Tula or an Ishbek, or they could take the bolt out of the 7.62 rifle, and it would actually interchange into the Remington or Westinghouse. And that, even though they would still have to shoot the 30-06 cartridge, that bolt would have loose enough tolerances that the rifle would actually work in the cold weather. And that was the downside of those 30-06 rifles, is they were built to very tight American tolerances, and when they got cold, the oil on them would gum up and they just would not cycle. You actually could not cycle the bolt in cold weather. And for those of you who have shot a Mosin Nagant rifle, you may have had what's called the Mosin stick happen. And it's when you fire the cartridge and you can't pull the bolt up. You actually have to hit it, or hit it with a piece of wood or something like that to get the bolt to cycle up like that, so you can eject the previously fired round. Well, you can imagine with a loose bolt how bad that is. Now take that bolt and make it a very tight fit and put it in sub-zero weather or somewhere there's about, and in a soldier's hands in a battlefield condition with oil that's gummed up. You know, a little bit of logic goes a long way on that one. The design of the rifle hasn't really changed much over the years. The early rifles, 1891 to 1936, had what is referred to as a hex-shaped receiver, and it's the barrel, or the chamber part of the barrel, and the receiver were machined in a hexagonal shape, which is actually, if you pull it out of the stock, it was actually an octagonal shape. But you know, everybody gets used to, you see three sides when it's above the receiver, so, or when it's above the stock, so people call it the hex shape. But in wartime, they realized that that shape and that design was, it required a lot more machining and a lot more finesse, so it was costing more to produce, and it was taking longer to produce. So what they did in 1836 was they switched to a round-shaped receiver and barrel, so they could just really turn them out rifle after rifle after rifle, and their fit and finish on their receiver got rougher. So if you're looking for a Mosin Nagant that is going to be really accurate, or you know, mostly accurate considering that it's a 100-year-old battle rifle, give or take, you probably want to try to find one with the hex receiver, because their machining quality was just a little bit better. Then other major design changes was in 1938 they started producing the M38 carbine. In 1944 they started producing the M44 carbine, which was the M38 with a fold-away bayonet. 59 they produced the M59. Otherwise, from there, it's just the small changes. So that's just a basic rundown on the rifle. You know, just some basic details. You want to know more, You can get online, do a search. There's a lot of data online from these. If you really want an interesting search and you have one of these rifles, do a search and try to find what all the little icons and emblems engraved on the gun mean. As far as I'm aware, nobody knows what every single one of them means. So a little bit of research goes a long way. You might have to visit a couple different sites, a couple different resources, and look all over. Every rifle, even though parts are interchangeable for the most part, and they all look the same, every rifle is an individual. It is unique because every rifle has its history engraved on the gun. This one has a star engraved right there. It's got another insignia engraved on the locking lug of the bolt. You know, it's got different markings on the barrel and the chamber underneath the sight. You got them all the way down to the tip of the barrel. You got them on the buttstock, and you got them on the actual stock itself, and even on the magazine follower. And they're everywhere. And some of them are even underneath the stock on the metal. So you do a little bit of research, you can find out some of the history of your individual rifle, which is really cool to know. And it's an exciting weapon to own without investing a lot of money into. I think if you're looking for a gun, you know, like a doomsday gun even, this is great for that, because you can buy the rifle for, you know, condition dependent, anywhere between $100 and $200. At $200, you're getting into a pristine, you know, premium quality rifle. At $100, you're getting one that's probably functional, but might not be quite as pretty. But they do really good as a gun to clean up, oil up, throw in the back of the closet in case, you know, crap hits the fan. You know, it's cheap. You're not out a lot of money. And you can buy ammunition in these big bolt tins, the jerry cans, and no, they're not jerry cans, spam cans. That's it. Jerry cans with gas cans for Jeeps. I'll get it straightened out. But yeah, these spam cans, they're vacuum sealed, so you're not going to get any contaminants in there. You're not going to get any moisture in there. But there's 440 rounds in this tin, and I think I picked this tin up for right around $100, and it is, depending on where you get it, it's military surplus ammunition. Perfectly good for what you're going to be using it for. If you want it for target ammo, crap hits the fan ammo, just throw it in the closet and store it for rainy day ammo. I mean, just don't pop it open, leave it sealed. It'll have a longer lifespan than your baby child, you know. So, but anyway, you can get into ammo pretty cheap. Some of them, if you look around, you'll get the silver tip bullets, and those are the actual sniper made rounds. They've got a steel shank inside the bullet that stabilizes them better, and the bullet is just a little bit lighter. So they fly a little flatter, they fly truer, you know, their accuracy is a little bit better. And with that steel shank, you almost get a mild armor piercing characteristic. You know, they'll go through a lot. And at the same time, if you want a cheap hunting rifle, you get into a carbine where the barrel's a little bit shorter, or if you're looking for something a little bit longer range, you know, the 9130s, they've got the full-length barrel, and they've got the range and the dropping power to take most large game, you know, maybe, or anything like that. If you do caribou, antelope, you know, large deer, bear, stuff like that. If you're looking for just a cheap hunting rifle or something with a little bit of character, you know, hunting's an adventure, so why not have a gun that's got a little bit of character and a little bit of that old-fashioned style. But with that, you know, there's companies like Winchester here that produce modern reloadable brass with, these are jacketed soft point bullets, and they are 180 grains. So it's a plenty heavy bullet. It's got plenty of accuracy. It travels fairly decent distance. Winchester actually puts ballistics on the back of their box, so I'm going to read some of these. This particular round, out of the muzzle, is 2,600 feet per second, and it holds its velocity 500 yards. It's out down to 1,200 feet per second. So, you know, I wouldn't go any farther than that, the 500 yard distance. but there's certainly videos of people taking longer shots. There's records of it. It's been done. But great rifle just for pretty much anything you'd use a high power rifle for. Or another option would be maybe your son or your child or your daughter gets old enough to be able to handle a 30-06 comparable rifle, because this cartridge compares very closely to a 30-06, and maybe they're old enough to be able to handle that size of a rifle, and they want to get into something. This is a really cheap option as a first rifle. They're really easy to maintain. The maintenance varies considerably with the ammunition that you use. This ammo is corrosive, so you will have to clean the gun every time you shoot it, soon after you shoot it, or you'll rust the barrel, and it'll be either a royal pain in the butt to get cleaned out, or it'll make the gun effectively inaccurate or not fireable. But you get into some of this newer stuff, it's not corrosive, it'll hold just fine. But anyway, moving on from there, the basic rifle is fun, but if you want to put a little bit more money into it and a little bit of time, you can really have a nice rifle. This is my M44 carbine. I have done what I call in my shop a full build on it. It has the Archangel polymer stock. It's a carbon fiber infused polymer stock, built by ProMag, and it's just a drop-in stock. There's no modifications to it. It's built specifically for the Mosin, and it gives you a more comfortable stock to work with. The European stocks tend to be very short for their length of pull. So if you have short arms, great, it'll fit you just fine. But for those of us who have really long orangutan arms, you want something with an adjustable butt stock, so you can lengthen the length of pull out. You get a little of a more vertical handle or grip, so you can get more of a pistol grip effect. Adjustable cheek comb here, a little tool compartment under here, or a spare ammo or whatever. Other things I've done with this rifle is as some of you may notice, I put a rail on here. This rail is from Brass Stacker, and it is not a rear sight replacement rail, it's a rear sight supplement rail. And what I mean by that is the factory rear sight is still on the gun. It's actually down underneath there, you probably can't see it, but how this rail mounts is you drive the pins out that hold the sight on, and then you slip this down over top of the sight, and they give you a pair of screws and nuts that go on here in place of the pins, and it holds this rail. And you can adjust the pitch of the rail for different MOA adjustments. It's an aluminum piece. It's really solid on there. I've never had it come loose. It's really, really reliable, and it leaves you the ability to fall back on your 100-yard iron sights should you need to. The downside of a rail this far forward is that you have to use a scout scope, or otherwise called a long eye relief scope. There's a fair amount of them on the market. I would be careful going out and buying one for a Mosin. You want to make sure that it can handle the recoil from a powerful rifle, especially on a carbine, because these cartridges are designed for the full length gun. So you lop 8 inches off the barrel, and you have a lot of recoil, you have a lot of noise, and another side effect that's really, really cool about the shorter barrel is that the powder load is for the long rifle, as I said. So as a result, on these shorter barrels, there's a lot of unburnt powder coming out the end of the muzzle, which leads to a very cool, very large fireball out of the barrel. Really cool. It'll scare the crap out of somebody who's new to your range if you're shooting at night. It's funny. You should try that. But another thing I've done with this rifle is I put a Timney drop-in trigger kit. And that you take the factory trigger out, which is really sloppy, it's unpredictable, it's mushy, it's heavy. There's no trigger safety whatsoever on this gun. And what it does is it puts all of that and it fixes it. You have an adjustable trigger from, I believe it's 3.5 to 5 pound trigger pull adjustment. You have a functional trigger safety. It bolts right on. It's predictable distance. It's a clean drop. You know, it's a really nice trigger package. And in the right hands, it probably takes 15 minutes to put on. I've had good luck with it. I love it. You know, the safety's nice to have. I don't usually go shooting with too many other people, so it never really bothers me much whether it has it or not. But yeah, anyway, this stock system also, I don't know if I mentioned it, it converts the rifle to a removable box magazine, which is a big improvement over the, oops, I almost dropped it there. It's a big improvement over pushing the rounds one at a time into the rifle. And for those of you who have loaded a 7.62 by 54R rifle before, you know this rim on the bullet, you really have to be paying attention in this style rifle, because if you don't get it in right, it will rim lock the cartridges. So then you're actually you're down to the point of dropping all the cartridges out, reloading them, and if you're in a battle situation, that's not exactly a spot you want to be in. You know, your gun sitting there in your lap with all your bullets all over the ground. You're trying to chase them down. But anyway, where I'm going with this rifle is that this is what we're going to be doing to this. Through a series of videos, I'm going to be taking this rifle and doing a budget build on it. And it'll be taking it and converting it into a rifle that can hold up to today's safety standards, you know, trigger safety, things like that. Converting it to the magazine, you know, the box magazine, and just making it more comfortable shoot, more enjoyable to take to the range, and maybe more functional in the field. And we're going to do all that on the budget-minded individual's setting. So we're not going to just take it out and throw $1,000, $1,500 at this and put a new bull barrel on it and a custom-made hardwood stock and, you know, the really fancy drilled and tapped rail on it so you can put the biggest scope you can find and the bent bolt handle so it'll clear the scope that you find. No, we're going to be doing this. You know, something that I can do for $600 or $700, and that's tops. That usually that price range includes the purchase of the rifle. So I'm going to do some pricing research on it and kind of split it up. The first installment of the video will probably be the stock, since I already have one. I already have one here. This one will be black. You know, you saw in my M44 that I have a desert tan stock on that. And that actually used to wear a black stock, but I wanted the tan one, and a client of mine, wanted the black one, so I put it on his rifle, and you know, everybody's happy. But anyway, I hope you stay tuned to the series and keep watching, enjoy, subscribe, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you.